The Grass is Always Greener. Chapter 1. It was just another day in Ninjago City. The streets were buzzing, the air was crisp, and Lord Garmadon was fighting against the ninja with his serpentine army. With their winning the ninja ball run, saving Dareth's dojo financially, it seems Lord Garmadon had decided to simply burn the place to the ground himself. Anything to keep the prophecy of the green ninja from coming true. His son couldn't train if his dojo was nothing but smoldering ashes. Between that and the sabotage he had done to the training equipment on the Bounty, Lloyd's training was sure to be delayed for a long while. He'd heard the mutinous comments from some serpentine that if he had had the foresight to sabotage the equipment, then he should have simply torched the dojo in the first place to save them from the shenanigans of the race only days ago. Those serpentine quickly learned to keep their mouths shut the hard way. As such, if they thought simply burning the place down was so easy, they could do it themselves while he observed from the side, not doing a thing to help. Unfortunately for them, the evening they'd gone to burn the dojo down happened to be the one where the ninja had stayed late in the day to give Lloyd extra training. As such, they weren't particularly happy to see their enemies attempted arson and jumped out to stop them. Burning the place down was quickly becoming a more difficult task than anticipated. And thus it was 4 ninjas versus an army of torch-wielding snakes. Unsurprisingly, given all their fighting experience fighting the serpentine before, the ninja were winning. Kai was literally in his element. "You dumb snakes think you can beat me using fire?" he asked as he spinjitsued around to knock several snakes that had gotten too close clear across the street. "I do not believe it matters what they chose to use," said Zane as he did similar to 3 more who were trying to sneak up on them. "We would still defeat them either way. Could you guys focus?" Cole called as he bodily threw one snake to knock over several others like bowling pins. "I'd rather not explain to Dareth why we let there be burn marks on his dojo on top of the damage from the last time Garmadon went after this place." He gestured at the tarped-over hole in the wall that was still there from when a construction crew tried to tear the place down. The contractor set to fix it wouldn't be there to do so for another few days, though planks of wood and other building supplies were already piled around the hole and ready to be used when they came. "Relax, Cole," said Jay cheerfully, smacking a burning stick out of his opponent's hands with his nunchucks. "We've got this." It truly seemed like they did have the battle handled. Despite this, Dareth was still relocating his fake trophy collection and roped Lloyd into helping them. "Almost got them," said Dareth as he and Lloyd hurried to pile the dojo owner's pride and joys into a wheelbarrow to carry them out. "Why do you even have a wheelbarrow?" Lloyd asked as he lugged a particularly heavy trophy into it. "We live in a city, and you don't look like you're into gardening." Dareth paused from where he was balancing the last 5 awards in his arms and shot the ninja in training a grin. "Easy, little buddy. I keep it here for this exact scenario." "You have a wheelbarrow, just in case Serpentine ever show up to wreck the place and stop some super important prophecy?" Lloyd asked dubiously. "Sure I do," said Dareth, pulling his load onto the top. "You don't?" Lloyd stared back at him, unsure if he was serious or not. Just then, a particularly loud crash from outside the dojo made them both jump. "Time to go," Dareth declared, grabbing the wheelbarrow handle with one hand and Lloyd's arm with the other, and racing them towards the exit. As they ran, the wheelbarrow in front of Dareth wobbled precariously. It was meant to be pushed with 2 hands, but the self-proclaimed brown ninja knew he'd kiss his chances of a hero goodbye if he didn't make sure the kid got out safely. No matter how much it physically hurt him to hear his precious trophies clink and scratch against each other. Still, with the way the wheelbarrow wobbled to and fro, it was inevitable one of the phony awards would fall out, and lo and behold, one did. Both Lloyd and Dareth paused and winced as the cylindrical trophy fell out of the wheelbarrow with a clatter and rolled across the floor to a far corner of the dojo. Not even waiting to hear what the other had to say, Lloyd said, "I'll get it," and pulled free from Dareth's grip to run over and grab the trophy. "Wait, little dude!" Dareth called after him. But whether he was going to tell him to leave the trophy or just to hurry up would remain unknown, as right at that moment they heard a yell of "Heads up!" from Jay outside. Both looked over just in time to see one of the serpentine's torches fly through the tarp on the wall and into the dojo. It landed on a pile of wooden planks that were set to repair the hole, and the flames began spreading quickly. "Lloyd!" Dareth called, shoving the wheelbarrow away from himself, but before he could reach him, the sight of Lloyd was completely blocked off by a wall of smoke. He still tried to pick his way through to where he'd seen the green ninja last, but before he could reach him, Jay burst in through the hole and grabbed him. "No time for your trophies," he said urgently, pulling Dareth away. "We've got to go." "Wait!" Dareth yelled, but Jay dragged him out of the building faster than he could react. Still, as he was pulled out of the now burning building, he yelled for the whole street to hear, "Lloyd's still in there!" The entire battle froze at those words. Everyone looked at the dojo owner in horror. "Lloyd!" said Garmadon, turning to face the blaze with an alarmed expression. Kai, who had frozen with his fist less than an inch away from the serpentine's snout, shoved the snake away and immediately ran for the building. "I've got him!" But the second he reached the hole, the flames caused the already damaged wall to collapse down, blocking his way in. "Lloyd!" the ninja all cried, and hurried to the closest door of the building to get in and reach him. Fear of their lord's wrath had the serpentine scrambling to help put out the fire as well, with several rushing to the nearest fire hydrant to get water and douse the flames. Garmadon could only watch in horror as the flames steadily grew, knowing any second they could consume his young son. This wasn't supposed to happen. Lloyd wasn't supposed to be here so late. He wasn't supposed to get caught in the crossfire of the scheme. He should have been safe on their claimed destiny's bounty. Why didn't he check to see if his son was here before insisting on starting the fire? If the ninja were here, then surely he wouldn't be far behind. Garmadon gripped the mega weapon in his hands so tightly it almost snapped in two. But the sight of it gave him an idea. In his annoyance at the serpentine's comment, he hadn't used it yet today. With the correct wish, he could save his son. But what about the next time Lloyd got caught in the crossfires of his plans? How many more times would the evil in his veins do harm to the one person he cared about in this entire world? How many times more would he be in danger before the prophecy was finally complete? Even then, he never wanted the prophecy to be completed. He never wanted to fight his son. He hoped his son never wanted to fight him too. If only... Lloyd Garmadon raised his head as an epiphany came to him. Raising the mega-weapon into the air, he said, "Mega-weapon! I wish my son lived in a world where we did not have to fight each other." The weapon glowed a brilliant gold before a beam shot from it, blasting a second hole in the dojo's walls and causing the flames to flicker wildly as it blew past. The beam of light vanished inside the building, and a second later all the windows of the dojo glowed with a pulse of golden light. A shockwave then burst out of it, putting the rest of the fire out completely. The ninja, who had been fighting to break down the door, seized the opportunity to run towards the new hole and rescue their trapped friend, only for a figure to burst out of the hole before they could reach it. The gathered ninja and serpentine could only stare at the new figure. Not that he paid them any mind, as he hurriedly batted at his still smoking clothes to stifle the embers still clinging to them. Once he seemed to be content he was no longer on fire, the figure looked around in confusion, giving all a chance to take in his appearance. It was a teenage boy roughly the same age as the ninja, with blonde hair a little longer than Cole's, and vivid green eyes that stared around at them all in bewilderment. The clothing he had been working so desperately to put out was a ninja gi that was mostly black with green accents scattered throughout it. He was no one any of them had seen before, and yet he almost looked like... The boy caught sight of Lord Garmadon standing a ways off with the mega-weapon still raised into the air, having forgotten to bring his arm down in shock at the results of his wish. The two locked eyes for a moment before the boy began looking around more frantically, taking in the sights of the serpentine around them, some of whom were still holding torches. The ninja, who, while staring at the newcomer, were standing ready to fight should any of the snakes make a wrong move. To Dareth, who was cowering behind the ninja for protection, and then back at the smoldering building he had just jumped out of. The boy then turned back to face Lord Garmadon with an expression like the warlord had just kicked his puppy into oncoming traffic. "Dad," he said, his voice cracking in a heartbroken tone, "you promised." The entire street was dead silent as everyone absorbed what the boy had just said, and what he had just called Garmadon. Lord Garmadon broke the silence first, finally bringing his arm back down so fast the mega-weapon clattered to the pavement. "Son?" Chapter 2. And Lloyd had been having such a good day, too. He'd even been looking forward to it, getting to spend the day with the people he loved most, building and doing cool science stuff. Who wouldn't be thrilled about that? But now the entire day felt soured as he stood in an all-too-familiar position, with his father and his army causing destruction, and his friends standing between him and some innocent civilian. How he had gotten into this position was anyone's guess. Things had been fine a second ago. He had no idea how it escalated this bad in the blink of an eye. Thinking back, it really didn't make any sense. While his father had sworn off evil in front of the whole city at the end of the Meowthra incident, he still had to face some repercussions for trying to conquer the city for so long and all the damage he had caused while doing it. That resulted in a hefty fine, hours upon hours of community service for both him and all the generals who still worked under him. It was deemed those who had been fired out of the volcano were already punished enough, and a long period of house arrest in his volcano for any time where he wasn't doing said community service. His dad had grumbled at these rulings, but eventually said, "The joke's on them. My volcano is so full of so much awesome stuff I never need to leave it anyways." "Then why did you?" Jay once had asked as he and Lloyd used their newly repaired mechs to help tow the volcano off the mayor's office and back to its spot in the ocean. "Because conquering things is so much more fun," Garmadon replied with a vicious grin. At a stern look from both Lloyd and Coco, he quickly added, "But it was time for a new hobby anyways. I've always wanted to take up golf or something." Still, the volcano did have to undergo some massive changes. With Garmadon no longer trying to take the city over every other day, there was no longer any need for his rooms upon rooms of evil science labs to build him awesome weapons of mass destruction. However, it would be a waste to just trash all the labs. Not to mention it would put all of his scientist henchmen out of work, and with their work history, it was unlikely they'd find a job anywhere else. And thus Garmadon, with encouragement from Lloyd, decided to keep the labs, but change the direction they were going in. He basically told the scientists that, with his permission, they could go and build whatever the heck they want, so long as it wasn't primarily made with evil in mind. They would then showcase it to him, and he would decide if they were going to sell it or not. No longer plundering their victims meant they needed another way to make money. However, the things produced still tended to be shark-themed due to Garmadon's bias towards them, and his tendency to give extra rewards to projects he particularly liked. For the most part, the scientists were thrilled at this change. Most of them only worked for Garmadon in the first place because he gave them scientific freedom they couldn't find elsewhere, even if it was destructive and aquatic-themed. To have even more freedom to chase their passion projects was a dream come true. There were, however, some that were unhappy with the change. They had joined Garmadon specifically to do evil and were not thrilled with this new direction he was going in. Needless to say, those particular scientists were quickly fired. Regular fired, that is. Being blasted out of a volcano was no longer a termination option, no matter how fun it was. So, what is a kid to do when his dad runs a massive science facility in a volcano that specializes in building mechs? Visit it, of course. It was quickly becoming a staple of Lloyd's after-school activities for him to fly over to his father's volcano to spend time with him before or after that day's ninja training. His mother had been skeptical at first and insisted on accompanying him whenever he went. She still hadn't fully forgiven her ex-husband for all that he had done in the past and wanted to make sure Lloyd was safe. Not that Garmadon minded. On the contrary, he was thrilled to see her and used the times they visited to reconnect with them both. After a few weeks, it became less of Coco coming to be protective and more because she wanted to see Garmadon too, and Lloyd was always thrilled to see them start to rekindle their old flame. Still, today had been a little different from his usual visit. Today had been the first time he'd finally gotten his father to relent and allow his friends to come with him. "I just don't see why they need to be here," Garmadon had grumbled over the phone the day before when Lloyd had asked for the umpteenth time. "I thought you liked coming here for family time, not friend time." "My friends are my family," Lloyd had replied firmly. "They're the ones who stuck with me when the rest of the city hated my guts. It took trashing the place with a giant cat for them to even consider ditching me." Garmadon hadn't looked impressed over the video chat, but his words gained the attention of his clearly eavesdropping friends. "Wait, you thought we were serious about that?" Cole had asked, looking mildly offended. At Lloyd's deer-in-the-headlights expression, they all groaned. "Lloyd, bro, we never actually hated you," said Kai, leaning over to give him a one-arm tug. He had always been the team hugger, especially whenever someone looked upset. "Yeah," Nia agreed with her twin. "I mean, we were mad, but not that mad." Cole nodded in agreement as he leaned into Zane's shoulder. "Was my sarcasm not clear enough?" Zane chirped. "I would never actually delete data about a friend." Jay looked almost ready to cry. "Oh man, it's my fault you thought that, isn't it?" he said. "I was the one who said we hated you. I didn't mean, I swear I was just angry." Lloyd gave them a hesitant look. "You guys really didn't hate me?" He was given a massive Kai hug to him in response, and all the rest vehemently vocalized their assurances. A loud cough over his phone had reminded him his father was still on the line, and he quickly turned his attention back to him. Garmadon had the same grimace on his face he had whenever he had to put up with a visit from Master Wu, but still said, "Oh, all right, they can come visit with you." His friends cheered. "But I still don't like it," Garmadon added sourly. "Oh, come on, Dad," Lloyd replied. "When do you ever turn down a chance to show off?" Garmadon had looked thoughtful at that and replied, "Never." The last thing Lloyd had seen before his father had hung up was his face shifting into a scheming look. He quickly warned his friends to avoid the shark tanks when they visited, just in case his father tried dropping them in one to scare them. It was worrying that Nia had actually looked excited at that prospect. He had been right about the shark tank. Only Nia ended up getting wet. But, being the water ninja, the sharks were no match for her, and the fierce carnivores quickly bowed to their new queen. "I like this one," Garmadon said when Nia finally climbed out of the tank and was set upon by a worried Kai. "She's got moxie." "So cool," Jay whispered next to him, staring at Nia with stars in his eyes. Nia flashed them a grin over to Kai's shoulder. "Thanks," she said before turning back to her brother. "I'm fine, Kai. You saw me." "Hey, I'm your big brother. It's my job to worry," Kai replied. "By 10 minutes, Nia said, sticking out her tongue at him. "I hypothesize the main root of Kai's anxiety is due to his fear of water," Zane spouted in his cheerful robotic tone. Kai grimaced. "Please tell me you didn't just say that," he said, knowing what company they were in. On cue, Garmadon immediately burst into raucous laughter. You're afraid of water?" he asked almost gleefully. "Man, I wish I'd known that when we were enemies. I lead an army of shark people. It would have been too perfect." Kai glowered at him. "Can I set him on fire?" he whispered softly to Lloyd. "Just a little bit." Lloyd's lips twitched in amusement, but he shook his head. Despite this, Kai continued to scowl like he was trying to set the ex-warlord on fire using only his mind. The rest of the group watched on in amusement. "I mean, come on, man. Your name even means ocean. How can you be scared of it?" Garmadon continued. That startled Kai from his glaring. "Wait, what? No, my name means fire." "Nuh-uh, totally means ocean. I know, because that's one of the names Coco wanted to name Lloyd if he was born a girl," Garmadon replied smugly. "You're full of it," Kai snapped. "My name is not a girl's name." Cole quickly stepped between them to keep the peace. "Okay, before this starts something that'll last for hours, why don't we ask the all-knowing Nindroid what the answer is?" he said with a slightly sarcastic lilt to his voice, as if this answer should have been obvious from the beginning. Sharing one last scowl at each other, both Kai and Garmadon turned to Zane for his input. The Nindroid's blue eyes flashed the way they always do when he was searching for answers off the internet, and his expression brightened when he found the answer. "The name Kai is unisex, with a vast variety of different meanings across multiple cultures," said Zane brightly. "It does in fact mean fire in one culture and ocean in another. Other standout meanings of this name include victory, happy, warrior, king of kings, rejoice, keeper of keys, and lovable." Kai blinked in surprise. "My name is cooler than I thought it was. That was pretty cool already." Garmadon grumbled under his breath at no longer being able to tease him for it. "What does my name mean?" Jay asked eagerly, and they spent the next chunk of time quizzing Zane on the meaning of all their names. Fun fact, the name Lloyd means gray. He could already tell it was going to become an inside joke that he should change his signature color. Fat chance. He loved green. The rest of the tour had been similarly pleasant. Jay and Nia had loved the science and mech labs, and after some wheedling, Lloyd managed to get Garmadon to agree to let them experiment there if they wanted to. Both jumped on the opportunity. The volcano's equipment was way better than what they had. They all had to admit the observation platform to overlook the constantly flowing lava was awesome and gave a fantastic view of the city. The less said about the trip to the army barracks, the better. Let's just say some of the few remaining soldiers who had remained guards at the facility were still holding a grudge for always losing to the ninja. All in all, it had been a pleasant trip, and no one had been set on fire. Yet. Garmadon did try to push the ninja's buttons somewhat, but not in an evil way. More in a teasing way, where he wasn't too sure what to make of them yet and was pushing boundaries. But for the most part, everyone was getting along. And culminated in the cafeteria, where they were all going to have lunch before splitting off so Nia and Jay could start working in the lab, while the rest of them tried out Garmadon's futuristic holograph training deck. Because what's the use of having a building full of scientists if they don't build you all the cool sci-fi stuff? After that, the last thing Lloyd remembers was getting up to change into his gi to go to the holodeck. The second he stepped out of the locker room and into the hallway, the world seemed to be enveloped with golden light, blazing flames, and black smoke. It was all Lloyd could do to avoid being set on fire. The flames quickly died down, and through the smoke, he could see an opening where the air was clear and took off for it, only to be confronted with the previously mentioned scene of his friends once again squaring off against his dad's reign of terror. And Lloyd felt his heart break at the sight. Was it all for nothing? Did all those days of spending time together with him and his mother, all those hours of learning how to throw and catch, how to shave, how to tie a tie and defuse a bomb, had they all been so meaningless that his father could go back to his evil ways so easily, so quickly? Lloyd had no idea how he got into the middle of the city from the volcano, and at the moment he didn't care. All he cared about was this. "Dad," he said, shameful that his voice was breaking like it was when he confronted him. You promised you wouldn't be evil anymore, and you broke it."